Because yeah, man, being alive on this podcast, on this recording, just means being in a good flow. It's like it means having a conversation, two guys just having a conversation about life and about whatever is happening there. And probably along the way, people can resonate and people can relate, and it will make it even more authentic as it is, right? So, Yannick, my man, it's an absolute freaking pleasure having you on here today. The interview that has been long awaited, as we've been trying to, schedule and moving and making time free for making this happen week after week after week. But I'm really happy that we found the time, or that you found the time out of your busy day and schedule to actually make this happen, man. And I'm excited to get into some cool conversations with you today. So how are you doing, my man?
Man, I am feeling so good. I am feeling so relaxed and just so happy about having this opportunity to drop in with you. It's, I think every time the last conversations that we had, they went super deep. And I think also the connection that we have rebuilt over the past weeks, months, is something so beautiful. And I'm just so looking forward to deepen it even further today.
Yeah, honoring it. I mean, something that I've noticed and that I've had a great conversation with a friend about last week is I realized that me as a perfectionist, I always have difficulties, figuring things out for myself and just making them pull through. I always want to be perfect. I always want everything to be perfect and strict to plan that I make up, right? I'm a very rational thinking person. And getting towards some conversations, some interviews like with you now and with Felix, I thought to myself, do I really want to be that strict with guys that I'm really, really close with and that I'm anyways just vibing best with if I'm not scripted? So I actually tried to change something up on my last interview with Felix, and it worked really well. So I just want to go in that flow with you, because I think an interview style is interesting if you want to get specific answers out of people, but a conversational type opens so many different doors for so many different layers of conversations that you're not even aware of yet, right? So, and I think this is exactly what makes us a good duet for deep conversations like this. But first of all, Yannick, I mean, we know each other now for quite a while. Maybe some of the listeners know you for quite a while. But for those who don't know you, why don't you give yourself, why don't you introduce yourself very briefly in who you are, where you're coming from, and what your current occupation is and like what you do in life.
Yeah, sure. I think, first of all, just to dive into what you shared now, what I love about this is just having an honest conversation, and you get, in my opinion, the greatest value out of it because you just share yourself in pure authenticity. It's like you don't hold back. It's like I could have like everything scripted now, who I am, what I do, and like I think just having this genuine exchange gives someone a feeling when they resonate, and when they don't resonate, well, they can just sign off. And that's just a beautiful opportunity for them to just not spend 1 hour on something that they don't want to listen to. So I love that. And
Appreciate you.
and
Appreciate you.
appreciate you too, my brother. I think who I am, difficult to describe. I am Yannick Cousinne, and I live in Luxembourg. I just love everything that has to do with human transformation. And I'm just on a journey on figuring out how I can be a more evolved person, how I can be a more loving, a more kind human being to myself and to others. And I use meditation and breath work to guide other people to do the same. But really what my genuine interest is just who am I as a person, and can I deepen that understanding of myself further and further and further. And in doing that, bringing more curiosity to who you are as a person too, so that I can learn more about you. And in learning more about you, I can ultimately also learn more about myself. I think I would frame it like this.
That's very wisely said. I I think I understand exactly where you're coming from, and we both know that we share, similar values in that direction that we want to discover. And I think we should definitely dedicate, as we're in 2024 now, and it has had an interesting start. I don't know about you, but if I look back at the last 2 weeks, like 2 weeks ago, being like a full moon, and that full moon was just absolutely powerful as it is, right? So this year, I think in the big spectrum of things, started already in an interesting way. But if you could give it one caption from what you've experienced so far, what would you say the 2024 is for you right now? I would give it the caption, still figuring it out. Just like big, still figuring it out, not knowing what's really going on. And just having like an interesting up and downs of emotions, right? What
Yeah,
would you
I
what would you say
definitely.
from what you've experienced so far from this year? What kind of upper upper topic, upper theme would you give it?
It's a really good question. I resonate a lot with the still figuring it out. Because I just approach life that way. It's like I'm just figuring it out. Whatever I'm doing, I have no clue. I just go on the journey. I pick up the pieces that resonate with me, leave the rest behind, and
Mhm.
move on.
Mm.
This year, man, I I entered this year with a lot of new intentions without actually wanting to have them. I am
Mm.
not so big on this whole New Year thing and New Year's resolutions. I think there is a place for it, but for myself, I I I think I work in cycles and they happen regardless if there's a new year starting or a new full moon. Like it might be connected, but I
Mhm.
think that I have to go more with the flow of my rhythm that my body has and my mind has. And having a full moon, as you described, contributed to it, I think, because I had just a wild few days.
Yeah, man.
And it
Tell me
happened
about
to
it.
be a full moon too.
Yeah,
It's just a
tell me about
lot.
it, man.
I think,
It,
I think, yeah.
like having a full moon in Aquarius like that. The funny thing is that um me as a Virgo, I anyways react quite strongly towards the moon, right? And what the moon is doing. Like people tell me, yeah, what if you like not pay attention to it and maybe it's just placebo? But yeah, as a Virgo, it's kind of like what we are being really pulled towards, And I react very strongly to what the moon is doing and like whatever's happening out there. I'm very sensitive to it, right? Um, and funny enough, I have a lot of Virgos in my friend circle. I don't know if I chose them voluntarily or subconsciously, or they're just people of the same feather flock together. But every single one of them, and so many other people, like 2 weeks ago, when the Aquarius full moon hits, they had the weirdest week. You had 5 days. It stayed so long. It stayed so long, man. You had 5 days of just tumultuous ups and downs and weird dreams. And I had very lucid dreams and, very emotional and loaded. And by Saturday, Sunday, everything kind of like slowly drifted up again. And this week, Monday, it's like everything's back to normal. And you're just like, wow, how is that even possible, man? How is that even possible? Like people who don't tell me, like who tell me they don't believe in star constellations and star signs and astrology and the influence of external energies up on our planet. Tell me about 2 weeks ago. How would you explain that? That everyone's very loaded from one day to another, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. What did you do to navigate those times? I'm curious. I'm curious to hear.
So right, I think I'm not, I'm not big on astrology. I don't have enough knowledge to say anything about it. And I haven't made my deep dive yet. Maybe it comes at one
Hmm.
point. But I definitely feel that every time something like that happens, it affects me too. And I think I'm very sensitive to that energy, whatever is going on. But I really don't know what is going on. So I'm just flowing with whatever happens in my body. And and to I think I have to preface this by answering the question that you asked before, which is how did my new year started? I unwillingly came into a position where I didn't like things about myself. I was
Mm-hmm.
actually mad at myself for the way that I showed up. And it caused me to make all of these different changes and to adapt my lifestyle and my behaviors. And
Mm-hmm.
I started off by having all of these new intentions for myself, and I came into action to care more about my mental well-being, care more about my emotional well-being,
Mm-hmm.
install habits that would cause a heightening in energy in my body, and experimenting with these different shifts that I had, I realized that whenever something happens, like you just described, the full moon hits and you left with these weird dreams, you wake up and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you
Mm-hmm.
go through the day and you're like, I actually have things set up here, but I'm a mess. I cannot execute the way that I
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think in these times, what helps me a lot is just slowing down and
Mm-hmm.
taking time to feel whatever is happening in my body, slowing down and reflect on the dreams that I had, because I had major insights from the dreams that I had. Like they
Mm-hmm.
resonated quite a bit. And then
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had 2 days where I couldn't show up. I couldn't. So I just canceled the meetings. I
Mm-hmm.
just canceled it and I prioritized whatever was going on within me. I wasn't
Mm-hmm. I
saying
feel
like,
you.
okay, it's because of the full moon, because I personally don't care that much. What I do care about is what is my internal experience in this moment and what can I
Mm-hmm.
do to honor it. And
Mm-hmm.
I always choose to slow down. Well, I give my best to slow down and to honor it when it happens.
Mm.
I'm
That's
curious on
beautiful.
how you dealt with it.
Yeah, what I've noticed is, I'm someone who likes to observe a lot, right? I observe when I talk to a lot of when I talk to people, and in my job and outside of my job, I've spoken with a lot of people last week. Not that I wanted to dispense the energy, because I definitely didn't have it for all of the conversations that I had, but I was always just curious, because if I'm experiencing this, that usually means that I'm not alone. Because the intention that I have for this year is, I have like a deeper work that I got to do on myself, that comes from a time where I always thought that everything what's happening to me is only to me. It's only me that is happening to, And this year it's getting a little bit loose and getting a meta perspective upon this problem, and understanding that when I feel like this, let me check my environment and see if somebody else is feeling like this too. Because there are things that are inside of your control and things that are outside of your control, right? And once you get aware of if you can control it or not, it changes your entire spectrum of well-being, like how well you're feeling in the moment. So I did speak to a lot of people last week, and I noted um, that people react in a very primordial way, right? You have the typical fight, flight, or freeze response for a situation, an energetical inburst that is outside of your control. People are reacting towards it with those three primal um, ways of reacting, right? Either they freeze, they absolutely drop everything they have, and they're just like, okay, I just want to sleep and be depressed and stay at home and not move because this is so bad. Life is crushing down. You have people that say, all right, if life is tough right now, let me be tougher and work even harder, and just like going against the wave. And then you have the people who kind of lean back and just let that entire phase pass you, right? It's like you're leaning back, and I think what I did and what I'm hearing from what you did is that you just lean back when things like this happen, and they happen a lot of times, man. Like energetical things or situations that are happening in your life that are unforeseen. I think it's great to adapt this view of, let me sit back, let me check what's happening right now, how I'm feeling right now, and let me ask myself that question again in half an hour, in an hour, in 2 hours, in 6 hours. Let me check in tomorrow morning again. If this doesn't change, then I can look at it. If it's just in the moment, I'm leaning back, I'm experiencing it, I'm observing it, and I'm just letting it pass through. That's one way. And one thing that I do, which will lead me actually to one of my first questions I have to you, is whenever things like this happen, I indulge very hardly, more than usual, into things like breath work, into things like meditation, because I know they're kind of like taking a break out of whatever is happening in my life. Um, breath work is something which has been not as like regular as I would want it to be, but it has been something that has been there for a couple of years now, right? And now looking at your life, I mean, you're a certified breathwork facilitator, right? You're a breathwork coach in apostrophe marks. I know that you don't like that word coach so much, but I would love to know your relationship to breath work, to the breath, and how you got into it and why you're so passionate about it. Because when I see you doing what you do, you seem like you're a completely different Yannick, full of passion, full of love, and full of like purpose out there. So I'm very curious. I know this is like a long question hook. Um, Tell me a little bit about your journey, how you got started in breath work.
Mm. I love that. Thank you for the question. And I
You're
love
welcome.
that you take time to practice in these chaotic moments. I so as I started out, I said that I am just so passionate about human transformation, and I'm just so passionate about change, if that is on my own or with others. And using the breath just tends to be the thing that creates enormous amounts of changes in a very efficient way. It's when you sit down and you do good 10 minutes of rhythmic breathing, meaning breathing fully in, letting the air go, not pausing in between, you're going to
Mhm,
feel exuberant. You're going to feel
mhm,
blissful. There is an
mhm,
arousal in your body, and you definitely feel different than the way you felt before. And I remembered I started doing breath work, practicing the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza.
mhm,
And he's more focused on meditation. It's not that breath is his main thing.
mhm,
But he has this very specific breath work that he teaches, which is called pulling the mind out of the body. And it does quite literally that. It pulls the mind out of the body. When I
mhm,
first started doing it, it's it's basically a breath that is designed in a way to pull the energy that is stored in the lower three energy centers of your body, to pull that energy from down there all the way up into the spine, into the brain, to liberate that stored energy into the brain so that you have more energy available to yourself to create, to make new
mhm,
decisions, to think in a new way, to feel different.
mhm,
And I remember I started practicing that breath, and it didn't took long that I was just fainting out, finding myself on the floor, and I was like, what was going on?
mm,
And I just entered a space that I cannot really explain. It's just super expansive, and it just not associated with the kind of consciousness that I have right now. It's a non-ordinary state that I experience there.
mhm,
And non-ordinary meaning that it's not accessible during your waking day. It's the dream state, it's the imagination state, it's the creative state. And I got hooked on that breath, and I practiced it in combination with the meditations, and it just instantly got me out of any loop that I was in. If I was in a heavy thought loop, I did the breath, I was fine. If I had
mhm,
some kind of emotion of shame or guilt, I did the breath, I was good. And doing the breath more and more and more helped me to liberate all of these stored emotions of shame, guilt, anger, resentment, frustration. And I remember I think, I don't even know how it happened, but I stumbled upon Wim Hof. And
mhm,
I think that the audience that is now listening to may know Wim Hof, and if you don't, just check him up. It's the Iceman,
Mm-hmm. The
crazy
Iceman.
dude, just the
Yeah.
Iceman. He just wants to revolutionize the world with exposing yourself to stress and regulating the body through breath, which I find is so cool. And I did his breathing, and I practice his breathing every single morning. And I noticed that every single time when I had a breath hold, it's like, okay, to give some explanation here, you have a few rounds of rhythmic breathing, meaning intense inhale, relaxed exhale, no pauses in between. You do this for 30 times, 40 times, 50 times. And then at the end, you exhale all the air out and you hold it on the bottom. And when you hold the breath without having any oxygen in the body, or without having any air in the body, it's like things happen. Like you get loosened up, you see weird things, colors may pop up. You're not fully connected to this waking day reality that we are now in. And you know what I'm talking about, right? Don't you?
I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm grooming. That's why I'm like, please continue. Yeah,
And
it's
I
it's a
remember
wild
that.
state. It's
It
a
is.
wild state. Yeah.
It's I think it can be a very frightened state. It can be it's a state where you don't really have control. And I think that is what caught me is I sometimes I fainted, and I had this full body experience of bliss. There was just it's like a tingling all over my body, and it just felt so good. And I craved this more and more and more. And then I have a really good friend, Anna, and she's also a breathwork facilitator. And she invited me on a session. And I remember that I I went through a breakup, and I had a lot of emotions in me. I just came from a 10-day trip through the mountains, just with the backpack and the tent to kind of process everything that was going on. And I came back to Luxembourg, and she offered that space. I was like, well, let's do that. Let's release some emotion, if that's what she's praising there. And
Amazing.
I went there. I went there, and it was like a art space, was beautiful. And she had this whole setup. It was like we were 8 people, and she explained the whole process. She was like, we are going to breathe now for 40 minutes. I was used to do that stuff for 40 rounds. That is just like 3-4 minutes.
Yeah.
Now she's like, we're going to extend that. And I was like, well, I go all the way in. I have nothing to lose. I just want to feel better. We go. And I went for it. And I remember having such a big release. I cried. I screamed. I punched the ground. I felt energy moving in my body in forms of tingly sensations. I felt my chest cramping up and opening up and cramping up and opening up. It was just a very intense experience. And I seemed to be the only person in the room that had that experience. But I was like, I didn't care. I just want to go for it. And after that experience, I felt a release. It was just something that I haven't felt in a very long time. And I just explored it further and further. And one day I was like, why not learn more about it and teach it to other people? Like, let's just try. And I had more and more sessions, and I went on a very deep exploration on what that modality could hold for me, since I was engaging in meditation for 5-6 years at that point. The Dr. Joe Dispenza work went really deep on that, and here was like, okay, let's just work more with the body. And brought me to weird places, man. I experience weird things, and it just feels really good every time and time again. I'm gonna stop it
It's
here.
yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm in my head. I'm like fully agree with you. Breathwork has been probably one of the most interesting introductions into my life. I would say I started as well in 2018, so it's been as well 6 years plus minus that I'm familiar with it. Of course, not as versed and not as trained as you, but I fully understand because I can relate to that experience that you've had. What I'm what I'm wondering, because I would like to wind it a little bit back for those who are very or fairly new to breathwork. Um, you've mentioned in the beginning that the purpose of breathwork is, oxygenating your body and to let go or tap into like emotional states and bring that energy to flow inside of you to release it, right? Um, Probably while you were explaining about your experience with Wim Hof and what it did to you, being at that point where after 40 rounds you exhale and you being in this state of like no breath in your lungs and just holding it, that does things to you. My question is, can you explain why or what this state is? Why first of all do you do breath work? What are the benefits of breath work? Not only what is it good for, because it's like people maybe are not aware that they have trauma and stored in them, so they might not have that as an introduction for breath work. But what is, for example, the benefits of breath work? What is that state that you are getting into when you have those rounds, breathing in, breathing out? Why do you get into such an ecstase? Why does it sometimes feel like you're tapping into a different into a different dimension? What is this? Can you explain that? Because I've never fully
Right.
understood it myself, right?
Mm. Okay. Right. So, well, first of all, there are many different types of breath work, and you basically want to utilize the breath or manipulate the breath to cause very specific outcomes for you.
Hmm.
You may not want to have a heavy arousal in your body. You may want to experience relaxation and calm, and then you would choose a very specific type of breath work that would give you that.
Hmm.
And I think it's important to mention that there is breath awareness and then there is breath control. And whenever we talk, for example, meditation, what you usually do is you take your focus onto the breath and you just observe the breath. You see, okay, how is my breath moving right now? Am I breathing through the chest? Am I breathing through the belly? Is my
Hmm.
breathing intense or shallow? Or is my breathing deep? That is breath awareness. And then there is breath control. For example, if you would find yourself in a very anxious place, you would go on that job interview, or you would have that one meeting, um, doing a very challenging thing, and you have all of these thoughts in your head running around, which then affect your body, and you feel stressed out. You would want to control the breathing in a way, while first of all becoming aware of the breath, becoming aware of how you actually feel in this moment,
Hmm.
honoring it in doing that, and then going over to controlling it. So you would maybe go for a little bit of box breathing. You would count the breathing. You breathe in for a count of 4, you hold it for a count of 4, you exhale for a count of 4, and you hold it for a count of 4. And you do that for some time in order for the body to recalibrate and for your nervous system response to alter. So you want to go out of that fight or flight response that got caused by some external trigger, and you want to let the body know that it is not a dangerous environment if it isn't. If there is a
Hmm.
threat out there, you don't want to sit down and breathe. You want to run.
So
If you're being if you
a quick
Mhm.
question to tap onto that. What is then the difference or the different importance between the inhale and the exhale? Because I know that plays a major role in terms of frequency, length, and so on, whatever it does to your body. Could you tap into that too?
Yes, 100%. So I think we all have experienced it when we take a very slow and soft exhale. What happens to the body? That's to you, my friend.
When you have a slow exhale or inhale?
Hmm.
You said exhale, right?
If you take a deep inhale and you exhale very softly and slowly, you prolong the exhale, how would you feel?
Very soft and at ease. You like pull this moment into length. Yeah, very relaxed.
Exactly right. And if you would intensify your inhale over and over again, how would you feel then?
Tensed up, quite, compressed, anxious, tight.
Mhm. Right. So that could be one outcome. What also could be is just super activating. You would feel super aroused. So I think whenever you inhale and whenever you intensify the process of inhaling, you bring more oxygen into the body, and
Mm-hmm.
oxygen is just life. It is what enlivens the body, and you feel more activated. When you slow down the exhale, you mess with the balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and you you relax the body more and more. So I think what is interesting is, what do you want to create for yourself? Is what is
Mm-hmm.
going on in your environment, and what do you want to do in order for you to change that internal experience? And focusing on your exhale tends to relax the body more down. Focusing on the inhale and intensifying that inhalation tends to arouse yourself more and more. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it always depends on what it is that you want to have as an internal experience, and and then what can you do to create that.
Mm-hmm.
And slowing down the breathing, both the inhale and the exhale, just gives you more relaxed sensation in the body, and intensifying the whole process gives you more power, more energy. And if you hyperventilate, well, that's not the thing that you want to have, because then you just stress out.
Obviously, that's a little bit too much. Then, gotcha,
Mhm.
gotcha. So if you connect, if you look, for example, now a typical example of a breathwork session, right? You have people lying in a room, right? You do your breath work rounds, and the body gets so oxygenated that physical reactions happen. When they have their moment of stillness, they start twitching, their hands that start cramping up. What is causing that? Because I've wondered so many times. Like I experience it myself. I mean, I guess because you get so much oxygen in, your body is just overfilled with it. But what is making these reactions happen? Because that's what I always find super fascinating about breath work, that it has these physical sensations. I'm a very, very physical sensation guy. Like my body reacts very hardly to it. What is causing that?
Can I ask you what exactly happened to you in such a session? Like, what was going on physically, specifically?
Um, I mean, for example, when I do now Wim Hof sessions, when I do them for myself, at a certain point, whenever I get to the point, around 38, 39, 40, when you exhale and you just lie there um, in complete silence with no air in your lungs, my body after I don't know, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, something in that direction, starts like slowly twitching a little bit, slowly starts to move. At another minute, maybe, my hands start cramping, right? They start like turning like this, and it's just like, your body starts, twitching in a certain way. Um, yeah, I'm probably answering the question myself right now because my body is screaming for air in that moment.
Depriving your body pretty much of oxygen in that moment, yeah.
Yeah. Because I always wondered, like sometimes you see people really releasing, releasing things, and they're moving, moving in that state. I've always just been very curious when it comes to that. Um, in your sessions, I can imagine it gets from time to time quite intense as well, working with people, right? Because you host group sessions as well. Um, how do you manage a group like that? When multiple things are happening at the same time, like what are the things that you have to take care of, like to be aware of consciously when you're in that space, when you're hosting that space.
Mhm. Right. So I think it's really important to differentiate like just a random Wim Hof 30 breath session with a extensive transformational breathwork session, and the twitching and the cramping and everything that is going on in session, the intense emotional release, the crying, the heavy arousal that you feel in your body. I think what is super interesting to witness in these moments is that those people are activating their bodies by deliberate will. They are creating an internal arousal that is caused by them choosing to breathe in a specific way. And it tends to bring up a lot of emotion. And in the society that we live in, we also tend to suppress a lot of emotion. We tend to just push them down and not feel them because it's not appropriate, it's not safe. And in these sessions, what I witness is that people, first of all, they finally relax in the beginning. They are becoming aware that they are in a safe space, that there is no threat, there is no danger, and that they can let go in that moment. Then, because they intensify their internal experience, they create that arousal, they also activate a part of the brain that is called the limbic system, that is basically holding all the memory, that is holding all the emotion. And having that part activated, the emotions just flow. The emotions,
Mhm.
they come up. And it tends to be an experience that you cannot really control. And if you do want to control and if you do want to resist the experience, it is a very unpleasant experience because you close off whatever wants to be opened up. But when you allow that emotion to boil up, when you allow that emotion to be felt, you realize that it is something that was there all along. That was something that caused you stress. It is something that caused friction in your body. And you also notice that in this internal arousal that you have created and in the safe space that you are in, the safe environment, you are able to let it go. And you may start to cry. You may start to scream. You may start to punch on the ground. And it's just a genuine expression of the body. It is the energy in motion that is finally just being able to do what it's supposed to do, to be in motion, to flow. And during these sessions, as you described, is you have all of these people laying around and they having these internal experiences, and they don't think that much about it, you know? They
Mhm.
just don't
Mhm.
think about it. They don't rationalize it. They don't, they're not so occupied with making sense of what is happening in their bodies, and they come into more embodiment. And being in embodiment tends also to give you an experience of release and relief. It's like it's like imagine you hold on to a stone for your whole entire life, or let's say like 70% of your life, and you can
Mhm.
just release the burden at once. It's like it's a very intense experience, and in the same breath, it's a very relieving experience, and you open up to the world and you stop closing down. And if it's just for 90 minutes, it can be a huge chunk of work that can be done. And then you
Yeah.
go back into the world you experience to triggers, you experience to all kind of things, and you continue the experiment. How am I doing? How am I feeling? How am I reacting? You're being curious towards your own way of behaving, your own way of thinking, your own way of feeling. And I think that is ultimately the beauty of breath work in that fashion, in a prolonged 90-minute session, that you feel safe enough to release whatever wants to be let go of, and then you get to take a decision to bring something new into your life. If that may be confidence, that may be level of security, a level of safety, a level of play in your life, joy, whatever it is for you that you want to have, you now have the energy available. You broadened your capacity and you can allow that to come in. And I think that's a very powerful position to be in.
Wow. Very beautifully put. I think thinking, as I just used the word as well, thinking is a big aspect why I started breathwork, for example. Because I'm someone who's very much in my head a lot of times, too much in my head a lot of times, and I chronically overthink about the most situations. And when I meditated for the first time, I realized, or I experienced for the first time, the state of just not being in my head. And I think for some people who resonate with that out there, that could be a motivator to, to do breathwork session, even if it's just as a starting point into your transformational journey, right? But for me, it was definitely the feeling of just being free of my thoughts, just feeling my body for once, feeling what is coming up, feeling of what has been held back and held down for quite a while, for a long time, most of my life. And with that, a whole new world opened. So I 100% agree with you. What I find very fascinating about you, Yannick, is that I know you now for a few years, and the level of depth that you have dedicated towards breath work is in direct proportion to the level of depth that you found within you. Meaning that I've witnessed over the last 2 years your transformation as someone, with that work of the breath, of being able to tune into your emotions. You become way more grounded. You become very rooted in your sense. What has been your experience since you started breathwork, like serious transformational breathwork? How has it shaped you? And what have been some of the most important learning lessons when you've been in those moments where you could truly encounter and welcome those emotions that have been stuck or that needed to be cleared out of it?
Yeah, I love that. I think you made a really good point before when you talked about getting out of your head and into your body. It's, having this discussion, especially with men, I think that there is a tendency for man to not fully embody their state. I think that men tend to close off very men tend to close off very fast, and they come into a reactive state very fast, or they isolate. And being in a space where you are just so confronted with your own emotions and not so occupied by rationalizing your emotions, because we just want to rationalize things all the time. All the fucking time. We just want to make sense of it, get a clear explanation for it, and then we'll be able to figure it all out. It's like, it's just not the way that I roll with it. It's not the way that I want to live.
No.
And coming into a place of embodiment means for me to feel the body fully, to allow yourself to be in that state of sensation, be in that state of emotionality. Is that even a word, emotionality? I have no idea.
We're
Being in a
just going to
state
put it
of
into the
feeling
dictionary now. We imprint it now. Emotionality is the new
yes,
word now, okay? Anyone who claims differently, shut up. It's a new word.
That's correct. Right. Got the copyright.
Got the copyright.
And when a man is embracing his emotions, I think it's the most beautiful thing to witness. There are
Oh,
so many times lately that I've been sitting with men and they just started to cry. Say, I had this experience 3 days ago, 4 days ago, where I had a man sitting up here. We were about to embark on a breathwork journey. 5 minutes into just a conversation, he started crying and he started opening up. And he told me that he never was embraced in he was never embraced in him feeling emotions in front of a man. It just never was a thing. And
because
me
it's just
sitting
not
there just
natural.
opening up,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's it's it doesn't feel natural. I think it doesn't feel natural because we are so conditioned to always be the provider, to always show up, to always do things
Your
and
parents
rationalize
have
things.
parents. Yeah, like the way your parents have been raised is the way that you are being raised. And if that, that ideology of, men don't cry, men don't shed tears, men show no emotions, men just need to perform, do, get things done, provide, and, be the caretaker of the
Yeah.
family. That's everything that a man is supposed to do and supposed to be. Um, of course, that is being taken from generation to generation. Like, I love the topic that you just started because that is a very deep one, a very big one, and I've been very lucky that I've already had the chance to speak to Jordan, and that is exactly what our conversation has been about as well. Is that um, personally, there's nothing more beautiful than a man who is conscious of his emotional state and aware of his ability to share it, and then has the courage to share it in front of others. I think that type of man is the one that should be respected the most. Um, I know that
Mhm.
we dive really deep into those conversations and those topics every time we meet because we are two men, both of us, like you and me, and every time we meet, we get into that topic too because it's not simple, in a world where you're always supposed to perform, you're expected to have it all figured out, to stand your ground and to say, I have it not all figured out. I don't know what I should do right now. And I do feel scared. I do feel worried. And it is scary. That is a great, acceptance of that state of yourself. And yeah,
Yeah.
the roots go very deep, I would say. The roots go very deep. And I can imagine that, the person that you were doing your session with, he had a lot of stuck emotions that were never really, he was never really allowed to express. And all of a sudden, if you feel for an instant, the love and the kindness that a Yannick Cousinne resonates in a safe environment, in a safe space, no wonder he pops.
I appreciate that.
No wonder.
And what was super interesting to witness in that moment was that that he was holding on to so much anger and he constantly had digestive problems. So, and he had his chest constantly closed off and there was pain in his chest.
Mm,
And him going through that process, witnessing him opening up and witnessing him releasing that stored anger, releasing that shame that was being built up and built up because we cannot show it. We cannot be vulnerable. We can't let the guard down. Oh no, it's not a good moment to do that. And you do that for days, weeks, months, years, and you just end up with having all of these symptoms, these diseases, because
mhm,
you just couldn't allow just for a second to open up and to release and to let go properly. And I think that so many men are facing that, and it's becoming more and more popular to release stored emotions, to come into a place of letting go. And I think Jordan, the guy that you interviewed does such powerful work in that,
Mm-hmm.
specifically with men. And this conversation is not, I think it's so interesting because the two of us, we are men, but it plays into women too. I love working with women because women tend to have something very powerful to say, but they just don't allow themselves to say it. And women have so many emotions stuck in there because they always had to be the pretty one. They got to show
Mm-hmm.
up with their aesthetic, and they were not able to show their rawness. And you see these interesting dynamics that is going on both in women and in men. And I think I don't want to get too confused in what a man is, what a woman is. I am just purely interested in who you are, what
Mm-hmm.
is going on in your internal experience. Do you like your internal experience? And if you don't, what is it that you would like to have instead? And then can we show enough trust to each other to do the work necessary to release whatever you don't like, and then to come into a state of embracing something new while also coming into a state of action, taking bold actions, moving into that direction of that new person that you've now created for yourself in your mind and partially in your body. And I think for myself, like that was a major part why breathwork was so powerful for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I realized that I was an angry person. There was so much anger in me, and I could just let it all out. You would see me every session scream. I would have I would have a sore throat after each session because I screamed so much. You saw me punching, you saw me shaking. I had so much energy in my body that was stored that I was
Mm-hmm.
shameful about to release. And me being in a place where my consciousness was altered, where I didn't really want it to rationalize, where I didn't feel like someone was looking at me and judging me, I was in a place where I could just let go. And I
Mm-hmm.
finally felt my body. And I don't want to give breathwork the credits for it necessarily. I want
Give
to
yourself the
give
credits.
credits to, sure, yes, I do, yes, but also just the willingness to express myself.
Mm-hmm.
There, I always had a longing for authenticity, but I never dared to truly share it. I never dared to come into a place of embodiment because that would include the angry parts. It would include the frustrated parts, the anxious parts, the insecure parts. That is full embodiment. And through this whole process of releasing bit by bit, feeling bit by bit, I finally came into a place where I could just embrace my fullness, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Embracing the
Ah,
weirdness, embracing the anger, embracing the joy, the bliss, everything, and then showing
amen.
up as that.
Amen.
Right.
Wow. Do you remember the last walk that we had a couple of weeks ago? When we talked exactly about this topic, about this realization that we both had, that we've come to a point where we've had so much work, internal work, external work that we did, but we still felt in a certain way back in 2023 stuck in this shell, right? Too afraid to spread your wings, to just like burst out your shoulders and just embrace who you truly are, because you constantly have this thing that you think and overthink about what other people would think about you, how they would judge you, how they would consider, how they would react if you all of a sudden would, show your true colors, if you all of a sudden would just speak your truth, even if it's very uncomfortable to some other people out there. Um, and remember how we got to the point that we are already everything that we need for this big change in our life. We are already the person that we need to become to fulfill our dreams, like the goals, the visions that we have set for ourselves. And it's it's less about attaining, but it's more about letting go. It's more about letting go of all of the things that we have learned to hold us back from just being that person. And one thing which has been for me and for you, because we both shared a lot of stories in that, has been one of the big, capital C's, the capital changes since last year, is that the less you care about what other people think, the more authentically you will become, and automatically the more opportunities you will attract and manifest into your life. And I realized in your life that the more you started to just speak your truth, the more incredible content you started doing, the more you started to show from the real Yannick, the vulnerable Yannick, the child Yannick that is dancing around in the mud after jumping into a lake, right? That kind of content is more like, I saw that in your journey, how you just stopped caring and started producing, started putting out, just started expressing your points, not caring about the feedback as much as like the expression of a thing that you have inside of you. And I think that is what makes someone truly authentic, and you can be really proud of yourself for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and in
Thank
the
you,
same
brother.
breath
Thank you. I really appreciate
I would say that this is the journey that every single one needs to take. It's a very scary one, because it's a very scary one and it's a very funny one at the same time. It's like this double-edged sword. It's like two faces, because until you get to the point where you don't care about people's reactions, you imagine the world and you like the most horrible scenarios in your head, right? You overthink into scenarios where you just like they rug you, they take the feet off off the ground. Um, but once you're at the point and you realize that other people's opinions of you have never really mattered, they have absolutely no influence over you apart from the words spoken. Um, they don't harm you, they can't harm you, and a lot of times that you know perspective that you gain when somebody says something bad about you, it's more of a reflection about who they truly are, and that there's something not entirely going well for them, and it's not really about you. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, I've always been good enough, I've always been that authentic me. I just listen to people who were not really worth my attention in the first place, right? And I think that is such a beautiful realization. Um, I bet you had your learning curve in 2023 as well. Um, why don't you share a little bit about that part? Because I know it has been a big journey for you since like the end of last year until now.
it. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I definitely. And I think authenticity also, it's like it always depends on what you really want for yourself, you know? It tends to be a more authentic version, but if there is someone that would want to have an experience of inauthenticity and they would be truly happy and that's really what they wanted, it's like, go for it. It's like, that's fine. But in my experience, authenticity is just something I always strived for. And especially, when it comes to putting your face to the screen, like putting your
Wow.
voice online. It's like, and we talked about this, right? It's like,
Mhm.
it's it's so interesting to observe yourself when you commit to something that you know will scare you, and you come into action and you have all of these voices popping up. You have all of these emotions creeping in. You're like, I cannot do this. I'm not
Mhm.
worthy enough. Well, I haven't
Mhm.
learned enough. I gotta study. I gotta have this certification. No, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And it's just this saboteur coming out of you, trying to convince, trying to convince you that it is right. And
Mhm.
I think, therefore, it is so important to commit to something when you want something. It's like when you have decided for yourself, that is the path that I want to choose for me, commit to it. and then observe yourself. Because all of the self-limiting thoughts, self-limiting beliefs, all of these emotions, sensations, they're going to creep up, and you can be the one dissecting. It's like, do I want that to be on my path? Do I want to continue feeling and thinking that way? Do I want to continue behaving that way? If not, okay, what can I do to release that, let go, and move into something that I actually like for myself?
Yeah.
That sounds super simple, but that is so freaking hard to actually do, because you're breaking the addiction to the person that you choose to be but don't want to be. You break an addiction to all of these emotions that your body is craving. You know, we think that the body wants best for us. Like, sure, I think we all want the best for us, but the body craves these emotions of anger. The body craves the frustration when you have training it for long enough. You know, it gives a rush of energy, it gives an arousal. So you committing to something new and you going against these emotions over and over again, facing off with them, brings you into a place where you actually be able to bring more of that newness in, the confidence, the security, the level of playfulness, childlikeness. Is that again a word? I don't know. Anyways,
That's a word, I guess.
Is it? You see, not only making stuff up here. I think that my journey the last year was all about committing to something and then facing off with myself. Committing to this path that I really want to have for myself, and then sitting in a crunch, sitting in the insecurities, sitting in the self-doubt, sitting in the fear. Oh my God, so much fear. And then slowly but surely moving through that river of change, and step by step coming to a place of embracing, a place of acceptance, where I can let go and finally feel my core. It's like you said it so beautifully. It is not out there. It's not. It's in here. We all know deep down what we want, and we have this buildup of identities, personas that is just not serving that core in the most sustainable way. It might give us that short-term sense of belonging, connection, love, but it just short-term, and we never truly come into full embracing of what actually matters for us. And I think I just dared to take the step to embrace what matters to me. And it was a hell of a ride, and it still is.
It's scary. It's scary, especially if it's because, you know, people listening to you on social media and, you know, listening to you and seeing you in the streets, you know, you as the persona Yannick, you do seem like someone who's very confident, who's very extroverted, outgoing guy, who is like the social flower, like the social power bee, right? But people who know you and people who have spent good time with you, they know that you're not all of that. They know that, you know, the Yannick, and I'm reflecting directly back to me because we are very similar in that sense. I might seem like a very outgoing, very extroverted guy, but like here on the podcast or when people meet me in the streets, but in fact we both are very introverted people. And like I don't know if people really get to grasp the amount of fear, anger, frustration, and like overwhelming it takes to break free from this, you know, conscious state of actually I want to isolate and I want to like just hide it right now. I don't feel like putting out a podcast episode. I don't feel like putting out like a piece of content, right? It's such a massive process that we are undergoing, and people are just thinking, well, he just posted another reel, right? He just took a deep dive in the morning in his pool. It looks cool. Let me give him a thumbs up, right? But the amount of work that it takes behind that, and that's why I salute every single one who does the work, every single one who does, involve himself or herself into personal development, into the healing works, because what people see from the outside is only the tip of the iceberg. Like the Yannick that is standing in front of the camera now speaking those confident tones, it has come a long way since that Yannick started off, right? And same for the Tim that is doing this podcast right now. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I sit at home, and I know we talked about this already, how many times I sit at home. It is so weird for me to sit in a room alone, turn on a camera, and smile into that camera like the world is watching. It is the strangest feeling, and I literally have so many times I'm spending hours to do like a 30-second video because it just doesn't feel natural to me. Like, my environment is if we go for a walk in nature, only the two of us, nobody's watching, right? Like, completely, I know I can be in your safe space, I can be vulnerable. Same thing with my closest friends around me. I can be vulnerable in their presence. But you don't have this when you're like on this topic, because my perfectionism kicks in and is like, well, I want this episode to look perfect. I want it to, like, lighting has to be there, sound has to be good. Am I asking the right questions? Is my audience getting the right value? But personally, I'm just like, wow, this is so scary, because actually it needs to be this healthy middle ground between having it all figured out, but still staying authentic, still staying in the flow, still ignoring that all of this is actually happening in another setup and we're not there face to face, right? So I want to salute people, same as you, for doing the work, right? Because people who know Yannick, they know that he has been through a great transformational journey himself, and the confidence that he's shining out right now has not always been there, right? And I think you're doing a phenomenal job, if I can say that, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much for it is so heartwarming to see that you perceive me that way.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you saying too that it's just one side. It's one part. And that's something that I came across lately, is having a really close look at all of my parts. It's like, who am I in my entirety? Like, who is that insecure Yannick? Who is he? And where did he get stuck in time? Who is that anxious part? And can I can I come into a place of kindness and care and be curious towards those parts without judging them? And I apply a lot of I don't know if you're familiar with it, internal family systems.
100%.
You've
100%.
great.
I have it in my NLP studies. Yeah.
Amazing. It is gold. It is gold. It's just, it says that there is the capital as self, that is the non-human part about you, that you could call divine, you could call wise. It is endless. It knows everything. And then there is all of these small parts. There is a version of, for example, the part that I'm showing right now. There is a part that is anxious, insecure, insignificant. There is a part that is super childlike. And there are all of these different versions of me, and they all coexist, while some of them are being overly activated and triggered, and having that overactivation done over and over again leads us to misidentify with ourselves. Is that all of a sudden you identify as an anxious person, as an insecure person, but in reality you're not. It's just that part that got overly activated, right? And coming into a place of curiosity and meeting all of these parts and having a vision for yourself. Having a vision, I think most people just sugarcoat this. It's like, it's cool to have a vision, yeah, but do you feel safe enough to come into execution? Well, probably not. It's like we all can dream big, but then coming into action, actualizing that vision requires a hell lot of safety and a hell lot of security in yourself. And having a close peek at all of these parts now enables me to build a relationship with me, with all of these me's. And then in my experience, I become more and more, I feel more and more embraced by myself because I actually care for these parts. And you feel all of a sudden that all of these parts, they are burdened with emotion and with limiting belief that got opposed to them in a certain period of my life. And unburdening these parts and embracing their superpower, allowing them to be in my experience, tends to make me feel more safe and coming into execution of that vision. And I think, again, it's all about discernment. Like when you see a person on the street and it's like this confident dude and it's like super chill, it's like, well, maybe that's not who he is fully, entirely. And maybe there's a part to that dude that is super insecure. And that's why I want to give an absolute effort on being curious to who you are in every
100%.
moment. For example, you, Tim, I don't know you. I don't know you. It's like I get to know you right now. And I don't want to know you in a sense of I'm not entirely interested in what you identify as. I am interested in who you are in this moment with your emotions, with your thoughts. And in me seeing you that way, I can actually see you and embrace the fullness of you and explore who you are.
Wow. I love the concept of internal family affairs. It is, I've been very interested along my NLP practitioner course, and the the aspect that we are working with is called timeline work, where in psychotherapy you have that aspect of traumatic timeline disruptions, where usually if trauma occurs on a certain point in your timeline, in your, whatever age you are right now, let's say 26, 27, right? Or let's take someone who's 40, right? At some point, something in his life happened where he has been maybe disrespected as a child, or he has been hit as a child. This traumatic experience of insufficiency, of lack of love, of inflicted insufficient, like a feeling of insufficiency. Whenever a trauma occurs for the first time and whenever the intensity is the highest, this is usually where this person, for this specific area of his life, gets stuck in. So whenever you have, and maybe some have realized that as well, whenever you pay attention to or you witness your parents or your grandparents, they are appropriate in most cases towards their age. But at a certain point, when you trigger them, when there is some kind of trigger being released, you experience a version of them that does not reflect the age that they are. And you see, for example, a little child, stomping their feet on the ground and like, getting really emotionally, getting red in the face, or someone who's just very disrespectful, like you would be in your teenage years, right? All of these are super interesting indicators for where there has been trauma in this person's life. And what you just said about that timeline work that you do in NLP, you work with a specific trigger. Let's say you take a feeling that you've been aware of that has been holding you down, let's say like lack of insufficiency, and you look throughout your entire existence, your entire childhood, your conscious memories, you take that feeling and you take that trigger and you go back to the earliest memories that you have where this happened and this occurred. And then you ask yourself, you do the somatic, checking in work, where does this feeling or does this situation resonate with the heaviness of the trauma that I've experienced? If the answer is no, then let's go a little bit deeper and let's find a deeper thought, a further memory of where this feeling holds more power, even more power. And you go further back in the timeline, even into the childhood years, the conscious childhood years. And of course, NLP is no psychotherapy, so there is a point where we have to say stop if it gets too deep. But like this, you can find out as well where you've been maybe deprived of these feelings at a very young age and work back towards them. So that's why I 100% resonate with what you're saying. It's a beautiful aspect, understanding, seeing, and looking at those parts of you that have been deprived and just witnessing or just giving them some time and love and space and maybe just a big hug, because maybe that's all what they need. Sometimes a big hug and a deep breath is all that you need to let go and to live and to fully feel alive. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And I think also asking for that big hug from other people too. It's like I'm a big hugger, and I know you too.
Man, I'm the biggest hugger. Whenever I see people, I'm just like, give me a hug. And whenever they want to shake hands, I'm like, nope, sorry, I'm a hugger. So, I've had that I have
We
had that
share
so many
that.
times when I meet people. When I meet people for the first time, is like the very German way is like you shake hands, right? But I'm German, but I don't consider myself German. I grew up in Luxembourg. I consider myself multinational, and I'm just not a handshake person. So whenever I met people in my first job, it's like whenever you meet someone, they want to give you the hand. I'm like, nope, hug right away, hug, and it just bonds you to that person right away. It creates rapport instantly. I love it. You're a big hugger too, aren't you? You're a big man, so of course you're a big hugger.
I hug long. Like I
Mm.
want to get in there. It's just so it relaxes my body, and I believe in co-regulating. It's like when you feel good and you give that person a hug, you give that person a taste of it, and everyone deserves it.
Would you consciously Okay, there's a question that just popped up in my mind. Because when it comes to hugging, and this is something that has been bugging me in the past, and I've had a couple of conversations with my good friend Luke about it already. Say now, is hugging appropriate in every situation? Appropriate meaning depending or leaning into your emotional state. Because if hugging is the transference of energy or just like the quick check-in of energies, is it appropriate to hug people every time? Is it appropriate to hug everyone? Because I realized that, for example, in bigger meditation groups that we used to have back in the days, there used to be a lot of people. And after the meditation, everyone is like so heart open. Some cried, some went through like some really deep and dark paths, and they want to hug. And I feel their energy in like approaching me. And a lot of times I'm like, yo, I don't want to hug you right now. Because I fear that whatever you have inside of you, you're just letting out on me. Because you're like in this space of, I want to give you my love, but it's actually not love. It's like, I want to give you all of my shit so you can work with it. And I've had so many times when I got home after those meditations, I realized I hugged too many people. And I'm actually not feeling grounded anymore. I'm not feeling good anymore. I feel deprived, worse than when I came. So, what do you think about that? That hugging is good, but only with people that you truly feel that you want to hug, right? I don't know if
Damn,
you've
that
experienced
is
something like that before. Yeah.
yes. I know. I've never. Yes, I have,
Ah.
and I think that is such a beautiful contemplation. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, few points. So first of all, no, I don't think that hugging is appropriate every time, because when a person, for example, let's say a person has experienced some kind of trauma and they just don't want to be approached that way, they feel super unsafe having a hug. No, it's like I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving you my hand.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. That's all you
what,
get.
like
That's all
sometimes
you get.
even right. And I think it's super important to not oppose yourself onto that other person, but then speaking into the energetics. I think that is super interesting,
Yeah.
especially in the case that you mentioned.
Yeah.
When I remember these meditations, we went deep. That was, by the way, also Dr. Joe meditations. That
Yep.
that was really, really deep. And being in that open space, The same thing happens, by the way, also after breathwork sessions. Like, you're super open and you're super sensitive, and you're sensitive to everything around you. So it's very crucial to know your own boundaries and know your own capacity in that state, which few people just don't know. When you share yourself with everyone and you're unable to ground yourself in that state, I think you're making yourself a big disservice, and you have experienced that yourself. And I think it's just a matter of exploring your own capacity. Like, if you have a big I have really big capacity to feel other people's emotions. Like, I know that I can take on a lot, but then it's the question, do I want that? Sometimes yes, I do. Sometimes I don't, depending on the person. But if I do, I immerse myself in it. I feel it. I let the energy move through me, and we Gucci. But it's just because I know how to do it. And I think if you don't have any awareness towards your own capacity, don't do it. You fuck up your state, and you
Yeah.
don't want that.
Yeah. But have you always been like that, or is that something that you trained for yourself? Becoming or being a good, like being able to hold that space. Because I like going back to that question that I posed in the beginning regarding your breathwork sessions, right? You have how many people in the room? 20, 17, 10, 12? Like I guess up to 20 you once told me. Bro, like how big does that space have to be for you to be able to hold 20 people? How do you train something like that? Like how do you
Yeah,
prepare yourself for something like that? I'm very curious.
I love that question a lot, a lot, a lot, a
A
lot.
lot, a
That is
lot, a lot, a lot.
a lot, a lot, a lot.
A
So
lot, a lot, a lot.
I think that is like we can, like, everyone can accumulate a body of information and knowledge and go out there and teach it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just a few are ready to hold the space, or to hold a position of centeredness and groundedness. I would not say
Mm-hmm.
to be neutral, yes,
Yeah.
but very few people are able to hold a position of centeredness and groundedness while another person is going through through a heavy catharsis, a heavy emotional release. I
Mm-hmm.
think many people get triggered in someone else's response that has nothing to do with them, but they are just overwhelmed with whatever is going on in their experience.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm in a space where there are, let's say, just 18 people laying around me, and one is having an immense scream, and that triggers all of a sudden 3, 4 other people, and they go through a heavy emotional release, and I'm in that position. I don't feel overwhelmed when that happens, because I have an immense trust that that person knows exactly what to do. Their body knows what to do in that moment to go
Mm-hmm.
through it. That is one. I know that they can do it, because otherwise their consciousness wouldn't allow it. Two, I know exactly that I'm not overwhelming myself. I don't go above 20 people, because that is just, I don't want to I don't want to risk that there are two
Mm-hmm.
people having an intense somatic release, and I'm not able to be there for the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that the the emotional investigation that I have done on myself causes me now to hold that centered, grounded, and curious approach whenever someone else has that experience. And I think I wouldn't be able to do that if I wouldn't have experienced this intense emotional experience on my own and have navigated myself. I
Mm-hmm.
have done most of the work regarding of emotional release, and kind of like reconditioning, reprogramming my mind on myself. And
Yeah.
it has been a very lonely journey for me. I never asked for help. I never, and I'm not suggesting to do that, but
No,
it's just what I chose to do. Like ask always.
be vulnerable.
Now, I haven't done that,
Hmm.
and I found myself in places where I had to go on a very lonely journey for 7 days, facing off with the darkest shadows, like you could call it the dark night of the soul. No one understands you but you. No one gets you but you. And no
Hmm.
one can actually help you. And you just got to move through it. And I remember, gosh, moments where I cried, screamed so hard, didn't care about what anyone would think of me. I just needed to let go of it, and I hold myself in that space. And now it is, I wouldn't, no, it is actually easy for me to do that for others. And I
Hmm.
want to experience that over and over again, because first I have the trust in me and in the person that it's all safe and we can do that. And two, I think that the more I train myself and expose myself to these situations, the more I broaden the capacity even further to do that for more people. And because at one point, God, we need a shit ton of space holders when this world continues the way it does.
It
So,
makes sense, and these people can only. I love the saying, "You can only meet someone as far as he has went himself." So I guess that's exactly what you're trying to say, right? It's like you can hug them and you can feel so grounded and relaxed because you've been in the place that they have been in. So your body doesn't freak out. It doesn't react with like a, like a moment of yeah, a fight, flight, or fright situation. But it's more like, I've been there. I got you. No worries. You can
yeah.
just feel yourself. I know how what you're feeling right now. I know what you're going through right now. Just let it go. Just feel, just be, right? Um yeah,
Mm.
the best space holders are the ones who, what you've just described, are the ones who have been through the darkest, or to the darkest places themselves. A
Yes.
lot of incredible people who know how to hold massive amounts of space for other people, who are incredible facilitators, who are incredible coaches, who are incredible mentors. Um, they are the ones who've been to the darkest and darkest of places themselves. Let it be death,
Mm.
let it be through, spiritual reincarnation, let it be through deep purging, let it be through traumatic experiences. Like, those people are usually the ones who've been through the darkest places. And when you meet them at that place, where you feel really bad and you want to let go, you're like, or they're like, no worries, I've seen worse. You got this, And I think that's what makes a real good facilitator. And therefore, you
Mm.
say, don't be alone. I say, don't be alone, but know what it feels like to feel alone, to be for yourself with your emotions, right? Um,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
too much of
Mm.
everything is not good, but a
Mm.
little bit of the right things is always the right approach to take. Because what I used to do a lot
Yeah.
is I used to co-regulate too much, right? Every time I felt overwhelmed, especially beginning of last year, every time I felt overwhelmed, I was kind of used to just go to other people and vent off about it until like the steam is gone, and then I went back to being normal. But all of a sudden, a day later, it came up again, that feeling, and I had to vent again. And you know why? Because I never really took the time for myself, by myself, to really ask myself, hey, what's going on? What's happening right now?
Mm.
Like, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. I just want to vent off. Let me just vent off and I'm good. No, no, sit down, sit down. What's going on? No, I'm just so used to no, stop. What's happening? And I think that conversation with yourself, that level of bonding with yourself, um, is such a beautiful approach. It's such a pure approach. Uh, you get to realize that you don't need anyone else but yourself. You need people to
Yeah.
be happy. You need a good co-regulated environment, but You don't need anyone to truly be at peace with yourself. That's what you give yourself.
Yes. Mm. And that is and when you don't need anyone else, but you choose to take someone else, that is a very self-empowering place. You
Yeah.
don't need a person,
Mm-hmm.
but you choose to have a support system next to you that enables you to go even further. That is something that I play a lot with right now. How can I embark on that journey or continue that journey, find deeper levels of understanding of myself, and embracing the help that is being offered.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, it is very important to only take someone that has gone a level deeper than you. I only choose to take advice or be helped by a person that has experienced more than I did,
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise I would risk, like, it just wouldn't serve me.
No.
And I
They
think
wouldn't know how to
also
help you.
it's no, no, they couldn't. You would be end
Mm-mm.
up coaching them, and that could be like some kind of mechanism that you choose for yourself to not go into the depth. So I think it's
Yeah.
crucial to choose wisely who you work with. Be like, yes, they need the knowledge. Not sure if they need the certification and everything. They just need the knowledge. And then it's important, do you resonate with that person?
Mm-hmm.
Is that person in resonance with who you are? And if not, take the next one, take someone else. Because when someone guides you to deeper places of awareness, deeper levels of feeling yourself, it's crucial that there is someone that gets you. There is
Yeah.
someone that really understands you.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find. It's hard to find. It's hard to explore, even like who's out there. And because you just don't go and Google like, hey, I want to you don't
Mm-hmm.
Google that shit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you find places, or people find you.
Yeah. And it's it is true. It is hard to find. It is hard to find someone that is even deeper than you, but at the same time, he's not. And I think a lot of people, because they're thinking that way, they don't even look. They're so like, yeah, there's no one that can understand me, for my sense. There's no one that can truly feel me. That's why I'm not going out there and reaching out to people, and I just figure it out for myself, right? But the same thing when you're dating. Like, you don't just find the perfect one right away. You got to
Mhm.
try. You got to go have a couple of dinners, like a couple of good ones, couple of bad ones, and then you all of a sudden find that person that relates to you, that resonates with you. And the same thing with finding a mentor, finding a coach. I believe everyone should have a coach. Everyone should have a mentor, because there's always someone who is a little bit further on their journey than you are on yours, and you can benefit. Like, you can learn from them. They can just be
Mhm.
that container of, I've been there, no worries. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's all
Mhm.
you need. Like, in those moments
Yeah.
when you're, for example, now, Yannick, you're overthinking and you're in that state of total isolation, you don't want to see anyone, you're just so much stuck in your side. Just imagine someone would just come by, older than you, would just come by, hug you, and tell you, no worries. I know exactly how you're feeling. Give it 24 hours. Take a deep breath. Go take a walk in the forest. Maybe journal a little bit, write down your thoughts, and trust me, you will come to them, and you'll be fine. That doesn't happen all the time, but people should have that around them. People should have mentors and coaches to learn from.
Mhm.
That's It's just
And
crucial, man.
I want to credit also therapists. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we it's if you're not into coaching or mentoring, like, have a therapist. Like, it's just, or a person that you know
Mm-hmm.
that has gone through it. It's like someone,
Mm-hmm.
but it's important
Yeah,
to have someone,
yeah.
because
Anyone.
otherwise you get really trapped in this sense of loneliness. And
It
it's
can be a
just,
brother. It can be a
yeah.
mother. It can be a therapist. It can be your best friend. It can be your dog. It can just co-regulate. It helps so much if you just release, open that ventile and just release some of that pressure, some of that air out. That's already, like, most of the time, that's already 50% of the rent. Just
Mhm.
venting from time to time can help. That's why I always recommend healthy communication, healthy co-regulation. And from time to time, whenever I'm having a long day, I call my bestie and I'm like, yo, give me just 5 minutes of your time where you just 100% let me express myself, my thoughts, whatever's been happening in my day today, because I just want to express it to get it out. And I vent fully, purely, and emotionally. And after 5 minutes, I'm like, wow, thank you for holding that space. Now, how you doing, my man? And that I do that so many times. Well, over the years, I did that so many times now, um, because it just helps to let off some of that extra pressure that is unnecessarily building up because you're either not doing a lot of physical exercise, you're not moving any energies or breath within you, and things just get stuck, right? Things just get stuck, and yeah, I think we're blessed at the age that we are, in which we are right now, to know and have access to all of the resources and information and knowledge that we have right now,
Yeah.
because we can actually make a big impact in people's lives. And I can see in you as well a person that has a lot of, like, big visions, big plans, big dreams, and I see how you can be a vehicle for other people because you're just really good at holding that space. So um, yeah, brother, I really appreciate the last 1.5 hours, 1 hour 40. Um, I would even say it's gonna be officially the longest one because Felix and me, we did last week, an hour 40 exact, but I know we're gonna surpass that. Um, but yeah, brother, I really appreciate you for giving me or giving us the time to be on this, to have a conversation on this. I always say that this is definitely only the first round out of many. That's the beauty of a podcast, because 1.5 hours, our walks on minimum are like 2 hours. So this is, like, I would say, first 3/4 of a walk that we have done now, and I'm really looking forward to future episodes to come and future vibes to come. Maybe even physically, maybe in your space, maybe in my own space here. Let's see, brother. First of all, before we get into the ending section of this episode, where can people find you, and how can people, if they're interested in everything they heard today, they're interested in you and they want to work with you, maybe how can people reach out to you, and what is it that people can expect from you when working together with you?
I appreciate that a lot. Thank you. And also thank you for taking your time and your presence and just being here with me. It's just such a delight.
Mm-hmm.
I Instagram, Yannick Cousin at Yannick
Well,
Cousin. There you find everything. That's where I'm the most active. You find a link there to my website, and I publish all the sessions there regarding the group.
mm-hmm.
On that note, I think it's cool to say I just got the well, I don't know how this podcast will come out, but on the 10th of January, there will be a group program that's going to start. Um, and it's going to be a 6-week breathwork journey where we all go on a very immersive journey on personal development, personal transformation, and it's going to be a really cool thing. And
So by the
what people
time
can
this one is
expect,
aired, you can say today, launching a 6-week course, because it's going to launch on the 10th exactly.
that's dope. Okay,
That's
so
dope.
today,
Uh-huh.
exactly, today it's going to be, they will start a 6-week program. Let's see if places are still available. If they are, I would love to have you. If
Mm-hmm.
that is something that you are interested in, what you can expect here is just a community of like-minded people here in Luxembourg, going on a journey of transforming some aspects about themselves and stepping into a more empowered, playful, confident, secure person, um, and having tools to move through all of that insecurity, anxiety, depression, that you can apply in your everyday life. working with me one-on-one, what you can expect is that in a way deeper fashion. We dive deep. We dive really deep into the somatics. We dive deep into your psyche. We dive deep into the emotions. And I only want to work with people that are ready to do that. We are not playing around. We go all in.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you guys should reach out to Yannick, or at least check out his Instagram. He does incredible content. He's as well known as the ice bath king, next to the Luxembourgish Michael Goggins, called Michael Imputu. No man, but I really appreciate and love your content. And while I was thinking about that line that I just said, bro, the funny thing is, like, the audience that doesn't really know because we haven't documented it, but do you Yannick and me have actually shared the last year of 2023 together during the day. Do you want to share with them what we did together? You want to share them how our last day, the 31st of December 2023, looked like? Because we actually met up and we said, like, actually it's really cold outside and we want to end the year with a banger. So what did we do, Yannick?
We took a really good dip into the lake at Estuur-sur in Luxembourg. Beautiful location. We freezed the balls off. It wasn't for so long. Huh? The water was really cold and the current was definitely present. So
Yes,
we just had a really good experience in facing off with I like to call it, and I hope I'm not cursing too much, with our inner bitch. And facing off with it before we enter this new year, and feeling just a state of exuberance.
it was
And it was
great.
great. We had a good time.
It was great.
Mm-hmm.
I loved how we were
Yeah.
in the cold, in the water. It was so freezingly freaking cold. And we just saw, like, families passing by, because it was a really beautiful day. It was very sunny. A lot of families passing by, in their winter jackets with their dogs, all like, okay, what the fuck are those guys doing in their underwear swimming in that lake at like -3, -4? What the hell is wrong with those guys? And we were like, "Ugh," we're like the Warriors, man. No, that was an incredible end of last year, I have to say, and I keep that in memory always. I will keep that in memory always. Awesome, dude. Before we get to the final question, because I have one more question for you that I ask pretty much, and everyone who's listening, who has been listening over the past, knows, like, the question that's coming right now. I always like to finish it up because it kind of like brings a nice little swish to the end of the episode. But yeah, man, I again want to say I want to thank you for taking the time, taking that hour 42, hour 45 here with me, and I'm really looking forward to the next episodes that we will have together, Yannick. I truly, truly appreciate you from the bottom of my heart, and I wish you all of the success and all of the filled 6-week retreats with Yannick, and maybe, and only maybe, who knows, there will be more of us both in the future outside of the podcast world. So let's see about that, my man. So my last question to you, Yannick, which I like to ask, and for you it's probably going to be a bigger one, or even if it takes longer to explain and to answer, take your time. If you would meet a younger version of you right now, if you would meet your younger self right now, what would be one advice that you could give that younger version of yourself right now, that you know now in your current state, that you wish you would have known earlier, that could not only help your younger self immensely in his life, but as well could impact some of the people listening right now? What would that thing be?
It's a great question. Yeah, I would say this. You are exactly where you are supposed to be. There is nothing that could be better about you. There is nothing that should be improved about you. right now, the way you stand here now, you stand here in all your glory. And just keep on living. Yeah.
I love you, brother. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for
I love you.
sharing these last words with the world, because I think that's something that I needed to hear as well. Thank you all for tuning in, and as we like to say on this episode at the end of it. With this being said, see you in the next one. Peace out.
Feeling is mutual. Love you.
Amazing.